Three, two, one. Hello and welcome to the Monday edition of the Morningscape podcast. I am Matt Moody, joined by Doug Levy to cover the pre-Halloween 8-game slate. Doug, how you doing?
I am doing well. I am under the weather today, but still just fighting through because I love the pod. I love Morningscape pod so much, unlike DJ, who is so dumb he forgot his mic at home or at
Again.
school again when he went home. Like, first off, when I told Rachel, she said, "What, is DJ just stupid?" And I said, the real question is, does DJ even ever go to school? Like, tomorrow's Monday. He's just like, whatever.
He is
School's
home
not
more than he
life.
is at school. That is correct. So let him tell you how he's
We're here.
working. Let DJ tell you how he's working and doing a podcast. He does none of those things. Like, he does them, but they're very, very inconsequential to his Morningscape podcast work, and that is quite shameful that he can't follow through for the listeners. So DJ, you're up, put on notice.
Oh, I saw they were doing a during the day wine tour yesterday or something.
That's
Really
what they were
flaking
doing.
it.
I was so through the grapevine, I heard that someone in his group was throwing up before 10:30 in the morning on this wine tour. So that's how DJ's weekend went, if you ask him.
Yet that doesn't surprise me even a little
No,
bit.
absolutely not. So,
I would have been
anyways,
surprised if you'd said that didn't happen.
very true. So yeah, like I mentioned, there's a 8-game slate for Monday. I think what the NHL did is they pushed most of the Tuesday action to Monday, as I believe there are only 3 games on Tuesday night. My guess is that families probably would not bring their kids to the rink when they could be trick or treating. I know as a little kid, I myself probably would have rather gotten free candy than go to a hockey game. But of course, I'm a Buffalo Sabres fan, so I don't really know what happiness feels like. So take that for what it's worth. So yeah, we get the nice little gift of a Monday, just loaded with a nice daily fantasy NHL slate. So, Doug, any more thoughts before we dive into the games?
Would you say that being a Sabres fan, of pretzels or a penny or a toothbrush?
All right, can you repeat that? You cut out a little bit.
Oh, I would say, what is being a Sabres fan the equivalent of going to the houses that give you pretzels and toothbrushes instead of candy?
Well, you see, I like pretzels myself, but toothbrushes and pennies for sure.
Okay.
That's kind of what it feels like. Every year, you're just so excited, and you're like, oh my god, look at this new thing! It's going to be so great. And then you show up, and they're like, yep, we still have pennies and toothbrushes for you. And you're just like, oh, wow, well, these might come in handy 6 months down the road. And then you pull out the toothbrush and you find out that it's like a terrible toothbrush and that draft lottery never seems to go in your favor.
It's terrible
And
at offense.
terrible at offense,
Can't
terrible
finish
at
easy
defense,
plays that get
can't stop a puck.
passed to you by
Yep,
your Reese's peanut butter cup that you have on
yep,
the ice 27 minutes a night.
yep. So, yep, life of the Sabres. They lost again on Saturday afternoon. So, yeah, things are not looking up in the land of Buffalo, but hey, go Bills. So on this Monday slate, we're looking at 8 games. We have Vegas at the Islanders. Vegas finally hitting the road after a 7-game homestand. Arizona at Philadelphia. Boston at Columbus. Montreal at Ottawa. Tampa at Florida. LA at St. Louis. Dallas at Vancouver. Toronto at San Jose. So those are the games we have. Just some notes from each game before we dive into the plays. It looks like the Golden Knights are calling up Shea Theodore. Chipichov got sent to the AHL. Griffin Reinhart got sent down, as did some other terrible defenseman. And it sounds like at the moment they're going to be calling up uh, Theodore, so always keep him in mind. Ryan Pulak on Saturday played a hefty role for the Islanders, scored a bunch of I think he had a goal and an assist on the power play, so we expect him to play again. That's good news. Philadelphia lost Shane Gostisbehere to a head injury on Saturday night. I would expect him to miss on Monday, especially given that it's the winless Coyotes. So Look for Philly for some value. Boston still without David Krejci. And let's see, I think the only other notable news is Vancouver, where Brock Besser is doubtful for Monday night still. He is probably their top power play if you don't really look at the line numbers, but just like how much they're played. So there will be a role for Vancouver, but we all know how bad Vancouver is, so that might not be overly noteworthy. So let's get started with Vegas at the Islanders. Doug, I think you're going to let me talk about Theodore and Pulock, but anyone else in this game stand out to you in terms of, you know, Vegas Knights should be pretty bad, and the Islanders shouldn't be as bad. So anything like that stand out to you?
Yeah, I think that Tavares' line is not too expensive to take advantage of. I mean, Tavares was 6.9 last game, and he only moved up to 7K after the hat trick, after his second hat trick in 3 games. So his price went up 200 after his first hat trick, and then he scored 1 point, and his price went down again, and now his price is back up at 7,000. So I'd say he's probably on pace for at least 1 goal. But yeah, that line, it's what, him, Lee, and
Right now it is Josh Bailey.
Josh Bailey, yeah. But I saw the picture after their last game of how he and Lee had scored like as many expected goals in that game as the entire Nashville team had or something. Like, but I mean, it really is just like the Tavares show. They're like, though, because Lee was even like probably a third of what Tavares' expected goals were. But yeah, Tavares puts the team on his back. I mean, if you want anybody who's going to get a piece of Vegas, I think it's going to be Tavares or that line, just to be a little bit cheaper. Lee is 5.2, Bailey is 3.9, but he will be playing on a different power play than Tavares and Lee. So just something to keep in mind on the Islanders. Those are guys that I kind of like. But yeah, go ahead, talk about Shea Theodore first.
Yeah, so I think, to kind of get back to what you were saying, as far as a 7,000 is probably the top center, like regardless of price. So that's an outstanding value. Last game, they did something rather interesting and I think unexpected. So their power play one, well, in addition to moving Eberle off of the first line, they actually moved Eberle off of the power play one as well. So Josh Bailey got that promotion in both regards. So the power play one, surprisingly enough, was Tavares, Bailey, Matthew Barzal, Anders Lee, and then Nick Leddy. Surprisingly enough, Ryan Pulock was not on the power play one, yet put up a power play goal and a power play assist. The second unit was Brock Nelson, Andrew Ladd, Jordan Eberle, Anthony Beauvillier, and Ryan Pulock. That said, Pulock did play 16 minutes. He played just as much 5-on-5 time as anyone outside of Nick Leddy. So I absolutely think Pulock is still in play, and I do think that they'll move Pulock up to the first unit, especially like late in games, or it kind of becomes like a must convert power play. I'm honestly not sure why they didn't just start him on that top unit, but I mean, whatever, it worked for them, and they murdered Nashville. So I think that they should have no problem of disposing of the Golden Knights. I touched on it earlier, but I mean, yes, the Golden Knights have started out really hot, but like this is where it fell for them because they started out the season with 2 road games against Dallas and Arizona. They got outplayed in both of them and just rode their goalies to win both of those games. And then they had a 7-game homestand. So, I mean, playing at home is always going to be easier. And it might be the easiest job in the league playing at home in Las Vegas, where teams for the first time are showing up to Las Vegas for their jobs. And they're just kind of like, yeah, we'll go here, we'll go there. I can't comment to confirm that they were out on the town till all hours of the night, maybe dealing with some hangovers, but it's definitely not outside of the realm of possibility. So now that the Knights are on a rather long road trip, I think now is the time to just start slamming in teams against them. And I think this Islanders team is a great way to start. Tavares, Bailey, Lee, even Pulock, if you're feeling not risky, but if you're feeling like a different set of exposures, given what we know, that can certainly be a play. On the Vegas side, you're never going to hear me talk about their forwards. I think they're so in over their heads right now. Their forwards are just not all that viable. That said, they do have Shea Theodore coming up. He has 11 points in 8 AHL games, and make sure he's actually in the lineup before you play him. But at 3.3, he would be an awesome value. And should Theodore not play, they still have the likes of Brad Hunt and Colin Miller in the low 3K range. Miller is 3.5 and Hunt is 3.3. Both guys are exceptional offensive defensemen, and it's definitely not out of the range of possibilities that they can get you a nice night in cash games. So, any other thoughts on Vegas and New York?
Yeah, I think one other guy that the sim likes, and I was just kind of looking through his stats, is Jonathan Marchessault. He's playing second line for Vegas, so not the line with Neil Leak and Perron, with William Karlsson. But he is seeing power play time with Perron, Eakin, Hula,
Eric Holla.
Holla.
Yeah.
But he on the season, he's hold on, I had it right here. Where did it go? Corsi. 16 individual Corsi per 60 player. He didn't see a lot of minutes last game. I'm not sure if that just had something to do with the fact that it was a blowout, but he was seeing 17, 18 minutes before that. So I don't hate that play. I mean, we talked about before the season started how Marchessault was probably one of their better players. I like him a lot more than somebody like James Neal or Riley Smith. So yeah, I like Marchessault. He's 4.8, but honestly, I'm probably going to be staying away from Vegas on this side. I think it's the time to take advantage of Vegas in terms of playing players against them, not start playing Vegas players all of a sudden.
Absolutely. So let's move to Arizona at Philadelphia. I mentioned Shane Gostisbehere. I haven't seen any official status for him, but given that it was a head injury and that it happened just on Saturday, I would not expect Gostisbehere to dress on Monday. So with Gostisbehere likely out, I mean, Ivan Provorov becomes probably the defensive value on the entire slate at 4.7. After Ghost went down last game, he played 27 minutes. That's not a huge increase. Granted that he was playing like in the range of 21 to 25 minutes a night beforehand. But every little bit of usage helped, and that would leave Provorov quarterbacking the power play 1 on Philadelphia, which is absolutely in a smash spot, given that they are playing, as I said, the winless Coyotes. They are just a decrepit hockey team. I did not think they would be this bad, but the expected goals really point to them being this terrible. And Philly's big guns certainly have not disappointed us yet this season. So, I'm just going to set it on the tee for you. Jake Voracek, anything new with him, or is he just, again, a top play? Play him at your own. Well, I guess fade him at your own peril.
Yeah, fade him at your own risk for sure. Sim's giving him still a 38% chance to break value, which is pretty high. But the one guy that the sim likes more, who I'm sure we'll talk about next, is Clayton Keller. So last time I was on the sim at least, or last time I was on the pod, I was talking about Keller as being one of the best value or like low price, high floor plays. But now he's made it all the way to the top of just normal. He's there. He's the man. The sim likes Keller. But yeah, I still think Voracek is a lock for me. He's been playing so well. 6 shots, 7 shots before last game. He's been outstanding. And I think, as you said, all their superstars have been coming to play. I don't think it's time to get off Voracek yet. He's only 7K.
Yeah, I mean, I think the main kind of not issue, but like the one red flag that it could be raised about Voracek is that while he's not shooting at an exceptionally high clip himself, at only 5% on the season, before Saturday's game, I'm not sure how the Couturier and Giroux fared, but let's see, Couturier is shooting 22% on the season. I typed in Giroux wrong because I guess I can't spell anymore. Claude Giroux is shooting 26%. So, I mean, you see Voracek has a ton of assists, 14 on the year in 11 games. So that number will likely fall. That said, you're not playing Voracek because he's an assist getter. You're playing him because he is a high floor shot generator with, I mean, it's definitely an above average expectancy for those shots to go in the net. And especially against an Arizona team that, I mean, they're terrible. Voracek is certainly a top play. So, I don't think it's out of the, like, I think it's okay, honestly, if you just play a stack of the Islanders and a stack of the Flyers in cash, just because I don't love a ton of other spots outside of this game or outside of those two games, and they're in such good spots at such good values that I think you can certainly get away with playing a bunch of guys from each game. So that said, anything else um, for Arizona at Philadelphia in terms of plays you would want to recommend?
No, I don't think so. Play Clayton Keller.
Okay,
Just put
yes,
that team
Clayton
on his
Keller.
back.
Keller is also an incredible play. So, yeah, that's pretty much the story of those two games. Now for some less exciting daily fantasy action. Let's head to Boston at Columbus. Um, Columbus is putting up pretty strong numbers. Like, um, you helped me generate the expected goals above average sheet that if you're a long-time listener, you'll have heard me talk about it a lot last year. We're kind of getting to that point in the year where it starts to be relevant again. And looking at it, the combination of Columbus's offense and Boston's defense at 5-on-5 has Columbus as the number one projected team on the slate. While I don't love Columbus myself, just because they're really spread out in terms of they have three strong lines right now. There's definitely some offensive upside here. So, thoughts on the top plays from this game?
Yeah, no, I agree. Just the fact that the talent is spread out, it's hard to say that any of them are cash viable because they could be. Columbus could very easily dominate the game without the player that you pick really doing anything. One guy that I think is one or the sim likes the most, and I think is the most consistent player would be Zach Werenski. Guy shoots a ton. He is 5K on DraftKings. Gets good power play time. Let's see, last game he played 21 minutes. I don't know. I just really like him. I have his jersey too, so but yeah, Zach Werenski is a great play. Has been playing well as of late, but you can see here last game he played 21 minutes, didn't have any points, didn't even have a shot on goal. Like, he really played bad last game. I didn't get to watch the last game. That's why I'm thinking of the game before that because I didn't watch the St. Louis game. But yeah, Werenski's kind of the only guy that I would mention on the Columbus side at least. How do you feel about
Yeah,
anyone else on Columbus as far as you think that they're going to be able to do something regardless of what everyone else on Columbus does?
I mean, I think in terms of just overall cash floor, Boone Jenner at 4.3 is a pretty. I mean, he's a pretty good to great play. Last game, I mean, granted they were trailing, they were struggling, but there's actually did Cam Atkinson get hurt? Because it looks like he just lost ice time way overall. He was down at 13 minutes. So we'll check on that just in a little bit. But so Boone Jenner played on the first unit with Atkinson, Panarin, Foligno, Werenski. Then when Atkinson went down, Alex Wenberg went back to that first unit. I'm not like you. I did not watch the game, but Wenberg, on that first unit obviously makes sense. So if Jenner can stick up there with Panarin, Foligno, Werenski, that's a very nice spot for him. And even without power play one time, Jenner is always going to be out there killing penalties. He's going to be one of the highest used forwards in terms of ice time. Um, he put up 20 minutes last game, and he is regularly up in the 18 to 19-minute range. So I think Boone Jenner is a strong play at 4.3, given that he has a solid shot floor himself. Doug, did you find anything on Cam Atkinson?
Yeah, so yeah, apparently Atkinson took a shot to the head at the beginning of the game, stayed in the game, and then later got a body check, hit him and aggravated some previous lower body injury that he had, but that they haven't disclosed how long he'll be out. But apparently, Dubois is going to play or was playing in the spot with Jenner and Dubinsky. So
Okay.
this
Yep,
article
I
seems
see
to
that.
note that. Yeah. And Marcus Hannakainen
Hannah,
is coming up. We saw him play a couple times last year, but he's not fantasy relevant, so don't play him.
yeah.
But
So yeah.
he could be out, but they did say they didn't skate today, so we won't know until tomorrow morning, or I guess this morning if you're listening to it on Monday morning. So be on the lookout for those morning skate notes, because they'll definitely be practicing and running lines on Monday.
Yep. So that's some good intel. I think maybe one other guy that, if Atkinson is out, could be worth a look outside of Jenner, could be Oliver Bjorkstrand. I think he's priced out of cash consideration, but at 4.4, he has a nasty shot. He's just awesome offensively. And last game he played almost 16 minutes. So if that sort of stays around where it is, he's playing with Wenberg at 5-on-5, and Wenberg's an awesome passer, and that's all he does is pass. So that's definitely good for Bjorkstrand's his shot total. Sonny Milano only played 3 minutes. He might have been hurt as well. So just keep an eye on the morning skate news, because it seems like there's a lot up in the air for Columbus. Now, on the Boston side, I mean, I have not really followed what Boston's been doing lately, but I haven't been following it closely. But from afar, it's looked pretty terrible. They had a long week off after the Sabres came back from like 3 goals down in the third period to beat them, and then they beat San Jose in a squeaker, and they lost with 1 second left in overtime to the Kings on Saturday night. I think they're kind of showing us that they're not an offensively dynamic team. I don't think anyone would have expected them to be. But Bergeron's, he's not been great himself. Marchand's been a little bit better, but certainly not at the level that their price tag would suggest. I mean, Bergeron's at 6.8, Marchand's at 7.3. So I just don't know how comfortable I am playing them on the road in Columbus against a team that's they're really strong defensively, and it's not like the players that they're down in Atkinson and maybe someone like Milano. It's not like they're going to suffer defensively from that. But with Bobrovsky in that, they're probably just a no-go to me. But I think you can jam in those studs at your own peril in GPPs. Your thoughts, Doug?
Yeah, the only guy the sim kind of likes is Bjork. The sim really hates Bjorkstrand, but the other the Anders Bjork, decent play playing with Marchand and Bergeron. But yeah, I'm sort of the same mindset. I don't think that this is going to be a particularly good game for Boston for you to get in on. I was looking, so Sonny Milano played 6 minutes against Winnipeg, and then how many did you say he played last game? Like
3.
3, yeah. It doesn't look like he's injured or anything. Tortorella's just been limiting his role. He went up to Sonny Milano on Friday's practice and had a chat with him. When reporters asked him what happened, Milano said that he asked him to get a haircut, and then he did get a haircut, but he's still only played 3 minutes. So
well,
it doesn't look like anything is wrong with him.
I guess he never got that haircut then.
No, I'm looking at a picture. It looks like he got a haircut after, but it didn't make him play more minutes.
You can make your own assumptions there as to what actually happened, but yeah. Doug, you are finally being proven correct in your anti-Sonny Milano takes from earlier this season. That absolutely blew up in your face.
Well, yeah, they figured I can't be wrong if he never touches the ice.
Yeah, so I think that's a good start on that game. Obviously, keep an eye on the news there. Montreal at Ottawa. The main thing here is that Max Pacioretty is $5,700 on DraftKings.com. Yeah, it makes sense when you consider that he hasn't, he has 2 goals in his last 3 games, so now he is at 3 goals and 0 assists on the season in 11 games. So obviously he's been struggling. But for DFS, yes, you care whether he scores or not, but you're looking at his shot rate and you're looking for those 0.5 every time he puts the puck on net. And right now, his last 4 games, he is playing 22 minutes, 19 minutes, 18 minutes, 22 minutes. And he has 10 shots, 2 shots, 8 shots, 5 shots. We know the Montreal offense filters through Max Pacioretty, through Shea Weber, and they're both just much too cheap. Shea Weber's kind of experienced a rebound in his price. He's gone from 5.3 back up to 5.8 after a weekend in which he had 2 goals on, actually, this must have been Tuesday now, so not quite the weekend, but he had 2 goals on Tuesday on 7 shots, and then on Saturday he had 2 assists with 7 blocks plus shots. He's a very strong cash option. Pacioretty, as I said, way underpriced. And then you can look at some lesser names like Artturi Lehkonen, who's playing with Jonathan Drouin and on that first power play unit. His shots haven't been as high as I would hope they would have been, given his shot rate from last season. But against an Ottawa team that really, they give you offense in return for like less dangerous opportunities. That's kind of really piques my interest in Montreal, because the one thing they haven't done well this year is create quality scoring chances. So when a team's going to give them the blue line and let them shoot, Pacioretty's going to take advantage of it. Shea Weber's going to take advantage of it, and you can get value without them even needing to score. And so you just kind of hope something crazy happens, and they can absolutely obliterate their values right here. So, any thoughts on those Montreal guys or some Ottawa guys that you want to mention?
Yeah, I still think Hoffman's a great play on Ottawa. He had 6 shots last game. He had 1 and then 5 and 5 in the other 2 of his last 4. So what's been going on with Erik Karlsson? I'm looking at his stats here. I haven't been keeping up with him very much, but he has 2 or less shots in all of his last 4 games. Doesn't seem to be really doing much of anything. Sim doesn't necessarily like him that much, but his price tag is still really high, and I think ownership is going to be high too. So what is your feeling on him?
So I've watched a decent amount of the Senators. Like, I think besides the Sabres, they're actually the team that I've watched the most of this year, just because I really find their system to be so interesting. One, I don't think you are playing Erik Karlsson against the Canadians over Brent Burns for 100 less against the Maple Leafs. I think you could, if you can find a way to play both of them, I don't have a problem with that. But Brent Burns is absolutely a priority here. The thing with Karlsson is that less involved in the rush as a follow-up guy. Either he's leading the rush himself, which, as weird as it sounds, like, yes, Erik Karlsson does that because he's Erik Karlsson, or he's just kind of like playing it off to someone else when he's getting up the ice. Like, I don't really think there's anything wrong with him per se. He looks super duper fast. He looks incredible. So while his shot numbers are down, I'm not worried long term about him. But on this particular slate, I don't really think there's a reason to play him over Brent Burns. So I don't know if that really answered your question, but yes, his numbers are down, and I don't think he's just pushing it to the max at this point to really, like, he's not doing it for the daily fantasy players out there.
I don't care what's wrong with him as long as you can tell me I should play Burns instead of him. That's all that I care about. I'm not going to write a letter to his family and let them know that I'm thinking about them or whatever. If I got a better guy to play, I'm just going to move on. But
yep.
Yeah, no, I think Hoffman's my favorite play on the Ottawa side, but I think you identified some better Montreal plays.
Yep. And if you're looking at, just one more thing. If you're looking at what happened this weekend with their offensive usage, Kyle Turris should be back in the lineup for make guys like Peugeot and Brassard just a bit less viable, because that's one more mouth to feed in the offense. So those guys, while they had pretty strong weekends, I wouldn't think anything. I wouldn't look too hard at them for cash on this slate. So, yeah, let's go to Tampa at Florida. Tampa got slaughtered by the Ducks on Saturday. I want to say it was their first home loss of the year, and now they head to Florida, where I think Florida has won. it doesn't matter. But I think Florida's also been very good at home as well. So um, two of the better teams in the Atlantic, you kind of go back 2 years now and you're like, yep, that makes sense. You look at last year and you're like, wait, these are the two best teams. Just one of those years last year. I mean, Doug, are we playing Kucherov? Are we playing Stamkos? What do you think? And how do those two intermingle?
Yeah, I staying with the what I've said before about the Stamkos Kucherov thing. The Sims is always going to like Stamkos a little bit more, just because it believes, and I sort of agree too, that Stamkos provides you a little more of a floor. I mean, Kucherov has been playing out of his mind. I tend to think that it's bound to regress a little bit. I mean, he is a really talented player, but a goal every game is not something you can be expecting forever. He's $400 cheaper. The sim gives him almost a whole 2%, which is a pretty big deal. 2% better chance to meet value. So I still tend to lean towards Stamkos. I really think it's hard to stack the two of them together, especially against a decently talented defensive Florida team. I would go Stamkos over Kucherov, but I'm not necessarily looking at either of them. I think they're both pretty expensive. Although I will say Stamkos is the highest ranked offensive frequency plus upside player on the slate according to the sim. So, and
Yeah,
Kucherov is
no,
high too.
yeah, and I think that makes perfect sense, like given what the sim is looking at, because I mean, here are like I don't think it's a stretch to say Kucherov played his way into top 10 in the NHL status last year. And I don't think, Stamkos has certainly shown this year that he hasn't really lost anything that made him so spectacular earlier in his career. But I think you're kind of looking at where you have two of the top 10 players in the NHL playing on the same line on a team where they are specifically constructed to get those two on the ice more often than the other team gets their studs on the ice. They 11 forward, 7 defensemen, so that helps even more. So you're going to see their ice time in general is much higher. But I think Sim knows about their overall ice time per game, and yeah, I mean that's kind of what Sim's looking at. What I'm looking at is a team that struggled to create 5-on-5 offense. Um, you know, Kucherov and Stamkos have played a very up-tempo game themselves at 5-on-5, but the rest of the team has been a relative snoozer. And I think what I'm looking to do here is take advantage of that high tempo affair and look at the first line of Florida, where you have guys like Barkov and Huberdeau at much more palatable prices. Um, I think in terms of cash games, you could get away with Huberdeau at 6K. I think he's equitable to Mike Hoffman at 6.1 as kind of the two premier plays at that range. But I think Pacioretty and Keller are almost lock-ish relative to them. Evgeny Dadonov at 5.3 is mighty interesting. It seems like he's back kind of like cemented on that first line now, as a few games ago he got moved off of that line and we were kind of like, oh no, what's happening? Florida, like what are they going to do? Seems like he's really carved out a role there. He's at, let's see, he had a goal and an assist on Saturday. He had 2 goals on Thursday, and he had a goal and an assist on last Sunday that was. So he has 6 points in his last 4 games. Over those 4 games, he has 17 shots on goal, and he's playing about 20 to 21 minutes. You look at last game, it was 21. So, that's kind of what I'm looking at on this game. I think I want to take advantage of the fact that Kucherov and Stamkos do have very high offensive rates while they're on the ice. But I want to take advantage of that from the other end to get a Florida team at home, hopefully a bit underowned. So, you tend to agree with what I'm saying. Do you like either of these defensemen on Florida, Yandel and Ekblad, to kind of jam in as correlation plays with that trio?
Yeah. The sim always really likes Ekblad. I mean, he's met value 60% of the games so far that the sim has kept track of. I was just looking at that. And it always gives him one of the highest chances to meet his value as long as his price stays below 5,000. He's just a guy that generates a lot, and you can count on him for some points. you can tell the story about betting on Dadonov 2 days ago, but yeah, the sim really likes Dadonov and gives him the rare forward with a higher than 40% chance to break value, which yeah you
Huh.
don't see very often. So Dadonov, sim really likes the place that he's in right now, and combined with how he's been playing. So I like Dadonov and Ekblad both for providing a lot of value with some upside. Um, so yeah, that's
Yeah.
where I tend to lean.
So I was looking, or so Doug texted me on Saturday afternoon. He's like, "Hey, like, what sports betting site do you use?" I'm like, "Oh, I use Five Dimes, but actually I haven't been there in a while." So I was bored. I was like, what do I want to do today? So I log on to Five Dimes and I'm looking through the NHL prop bets. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. I'm looking at Crosby's like a minus 160 to register a point, like plus 145 to not register a point. Evgeny Dadonov, for whatever reason, and probably just an error in terms of their data entry or whatever, he was plus 550 to not record a point,
No,
and
650.
yeah, okay, whatever it was. He was, there was I think a 90% chance they were saying that he was going to get a point.
Yeah,
So I'm like,
86 and a half.
it's so painful. But so yeah, I'm like, oh my god, I found an error, and I just, I had some money on the account. So I'm like, let me just put most of it on this, and just, one of the best plus EV bets I'll ever make in my life. Of course, being the Detroit Red Wings, I should have suspected that Kenny Dadonov would have ripped my heart out. Interestingly, I also played James Reimer in cash, and he also found a way to rip my heart out, losing in a shootout. But yeah, that was a pretty exciting way to lose $40 on Saturday. Luckily, I had a bit of guys like Fulak and Montour, but yeah, that was kind of interesting, and just a little note on my weekend happenings and how Evgeny Dadonov could have made me a rich man by not doing anything. But you were mentioning Aaron Ekblad. Sim really likes Ekblad. If you look at last year in like iCourse per 60 by defenseman, among regulars, Ekblad was third in the NHL in iCourse per 60, behind only Brent Burns and Shane Gostisbehere. So, I mean, that's really the reason that Ekblad is loved so much by the sim. He is super cheap. He's on the top power play right now, which is a new development. So I think he is also a very, very strong play. Um, Anything else, or shall we move to LA St. Louis?
Let us move on.
Okay. Um, yeah, LA St. Louis. What do I want to say about this game? And pretty phenomenal. Over the last 10 days, in 5 games, he has 7.5 shot attempts per game. That's pretty good. Ranks right up there among the tops of the slate, behind only Shea Weber and Max Pacioretty. Surprising that we see our old friend up there. So yeah, I mean, he's in play, but the Kings have been quite good. It's not like you're getting a super discount on Tarasenko or anything, and Tarasenko doesn't play a ton of minutes. Like, it's not like you're getting anything like Kucherov, where he's going to get 23, 24 minutes in the optimal scenario. Like, Tarasenko's going to top out around 18. In general, this game is a total stay away from me. I don't really think there's any need to dive into either of these sides. Their top performers have been way priced up, and there's not really any value spots to speak of. So, from this game, Doug, from the Sims' eyes or from your eyes?
Just Alec Martinez, Drew Doughty, both. The Sim still likes them as decent values. Doughty's 5.7, Martinez is 4.4. I think I touched on them last time. Don't want to talk too much about it, just because, yeah, I'm sort of the same mindset as you. There's only one person with a 0.9 or above pickle score in this entire game, so there's like, I don't know, there's not a lot of offense or not a lot of consistency coming from this game at all. So Doughty and Martinez are two guys that provide a decent floor. That I don't know if someone put a gun to your head and forced you to pick a guy from this game, that's probably where I would go. But yeah, I'm not particularly interested in this game.
Yeah, I think one cheap name that I certainly never had on my radar until actually it was last Wednesday, I think, when they were on the 2-game slate, the Blues were, and I was looking for a cheap defenseman. Joel Edmondson at 3.8 is disgusting. Don't get me wrong, but I was looking into some stuff this weekend, and when you look at block shots per game since the midpoint of last year, so I think I used February 1st as like my cutoff. Joel Edmondson was up. I think he was 5 or 6 in the NHL in block shots per game. Um, you're kind of point chasing at this point because last game he had a goal and an assist. But if you look at, I mean, obviously his floor numbers are great. He has 41 block shots in 12 games. He also has 22 shots on net. So if you do some quick math, it's 63 blocks plus shots in just 12 games. That's over 5 per game. 2.5 points in the bank for 3.8 is certainly not a bad look at all. He's getting about 19 to 20 minutes a night. So while he's not likely going to win you a GPP, although, I mean, last game he did have a strong game, putting up 8 fantasy points from Joel Edmondson. Still makes me laugh. I think his floor is high enough to like where he's an actual legit consideration for cash games. I don't expect Sim to have anything smart to say about that because, God, why would the Sim have anything good to say about that?
No.
Yeah, but you know,
there's nothing.
Just some kind of like contextual, I guess. But certainly LA St. Louis should be a defensive throwdown. So not all that much interest from me personally. So 2 games left. The 10 o'clock slate. We have Dallas at Vancouver. No Besser would mean that somebody would get a boost up to the Horvat line. And let's see, last game, I believe, actually might have been in practice because I think this is a recent development. Yeah, they last played on the 28th, which was Friday.
Yeah.
And yeah, so he played the full game there. So I certainly do not. Oh, did they? Wait, Vancouver didn't play yesterday, did they?
The last game I see is the 26th.
Okay, yeah, I thought you said yesterday.
Well, you said the 28th, which was yesterday. But
oh, my bad. Yeah, I meant the 26th. Yeah. And so, we're not sure what's going to break there. For me, there's really no interest in Vancouver anyways. Even a guy like Michael Del Zotto, who is kind of the cheap defenseman du jour, well, he's still putting up 3.5 fantasy points per game on the season. And kind of like Edmonton, he has 60 blocks plus shots in 10 games. He is up at 4.2. So, yes, you can play him. But I think getting a guy like Ekblad for just a few hundred more is just a better play in general. And I think that's really the only Vancouver side. Doug, I'll let you tackle Dallas just because I feel like I'm doing a lot of talking, and I'm sure you don't have anything to say about Vancouver.
Yeah, no, there's nothing. I mean, Besser, the Sim didn't have Besser out yet, and he was still their best play. So I'm not interested in anything on Vancouver. I don't think that are great value plays. They provide you decent floor. I don't think that I'm going to be chasing these. Vegas has this as a 6 over under game. I'm not sure how I feel about that. I guess it could be opened up, but yeah, no, I'm not in love with Sagan or Ben in this matchup. Let me see if there's any better value plays. Sim likes Ben Hutton at 3.2 is a good value play. I don't know much about Ben Hutton to say anything about that, but yeah, no, I'm not super interested. I saw Esa Lindell had a goal last game. I've touted him a couple times on the pod, but yeah, no, I'm not super interested in any of that.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, six over under is certainly interesting. I don't quite buy it myself. We've seen Dallas do some fun things, especially recently. But when you look at the full season still, they simply don't grade out all that well in terms of their chance generation. And Vancouver's actually been surprisingly stingy defensively. They've been legit. I don't know how long that'll last, but certainly on a slate where I think there's some more slam dunk plays, playing at home in the Islanders and Flyers, jumping on a team like Dallas on the road while their prices are as high as they are, not really all that interesting to me. So I guess just some notes if you want to stack Dallas. As of the most recent game, we saw Radulov back on that top line. I think we had talked that Brett Ritchie was up on that first line. That lasted for all of about 5 minutes in the game we were referencing. And then Radulov went right back to the top line, and he's still on the power play 1. So, his price is still lower than Benn and Sagan. So if you're looking for that exposure, he is 5.9 on the slate. I don't think he's the worst play. And, everyone else, Benn, Sagan, Klingberg, they're all very priced up. So I just don't have much interest here. Let's go to the last game.
Wait, hold on. I was just reading here, just so that people know. Sam Gagner was playing in practice with Horvat and Berchi, and Granlund was playing Besser's power play time, and they called up Jason Megna to play on the fourth line.
Yeah.
So Gagner and Granlund on the power play.
Granlund's going to play a lot of minutes. He normally does. Man, I just can't. I remember Friday night watching, and they put up 6 goals on the Capitals. That was crazy. Might never see that one again. But yeah, Granlund played 18 minutes in that game, and with an increase in role, 3.5, he's not a terrible player, but he's simply not all that good offensively. So keep an eye on him if you must, but I think there's more value than I think there's not a need to go to him for your value plays, especially in cash. So let's go to the last game, Toronto at San Jose. Now this game is a 6 over under as well, and I totally agree with that. I have San Jose and Toronto as number 2 and number 3. If you look at the expected goals for above average, just for reference, Dallas and Vancouver. Vancouver I actually have as number 6 on the slate. Dallas is all the way down at 15. Now, of course, I don't, especially on a team like Dallas where it's so concentrated on Benn, Sagan, and Radulov, I'll look at more line sort of stuff. And when you look at their line production, it's been more offensively paced than their overall team numbers. But still, that's kind of like a indicator of, hey, I think you should target Toronto at San Jose over Dallas at Vancouver. So top plays from this game, Doug. I mean, is it Burns, and then Burns, or do you have Burns above Burns and Burns?
Yeah, I really tend to lean towards Burns in that matchup, but Burns
Okay,
is always
yeah,
a good
makes
option.
sense.
Burns has the floor, but Burns is the guy who really gives you the upside too. So
Of course, yeah, no, yep. And then as a third option, Burns has a nice combo of floor and upside. So
yeah. He's a really vocal player out there. A lot of heart, a lot of grit as well.
At 8,000 last year, Burns was a jam him in type play. This year hasn't been quite as impressive with his overall fantasy production, but he's still averaging 4.5 fantasy points per game, and you got to think this is some of the lowest output that you'll ever see out of Brent Burns. Last 5 games, he is at 7 shot attempts, and Burns is notoriously good at getting his shots from the blue line on net, which shows in the fact that he has 36 shot attempts, and quick math, 23 of them have gotten on net. That's a much higher percentage than most other defensemen. But I think what's really noteworthy here is that San Jose just finished a pretty long road trip, 5 games, and now they'll be at home playing at the fantasy goldmine that is the Toronto Maple Leafs. So, I think that was a long-winded version to say jamming Brent Burns, but I think the entire San Jose team is very much in play here. I guess Logan Couture at 6,900 is a bit high, but can you argue with what he's done to begin the season? He went on that road trip and he was easily their most dominant player. So he could, yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, Logan Couture tweeted after beating Buffalo that blowing out Buffalo at home didn't make up for the fact that he would have to fly back to San Jose while the Bills were playing today.
Hey, maybe as the Bills go, Couture goes. So
yeah, but yeah, go ahead.
So yeah, I mean, Couture is he's not a particularly great play, but he's absolutely in play, even at 7,000, just given how good he is and given how bad Toronto is at playing defense. Tim Heed is still playing the power play one, but his minutes have really fallen off. So I don't think he is in play for cash. And then, you have your regular suspects and Joe Pavelski. He comes in. He's not going to cost you a whole lot at 6,600. So if you're really feeling frisky, you could stack him with Burns. But that line simply not really found it this year. They're cycling through line mates to go with them. Right now it's Kevin Labanc. It's been for a while, but reading that they're kind of getting frustrated with the fact that goes aren't producing all that much. Pavelski only has 5 points in 10 games. So I think you could see a new line mate up there. So if it's someone like Timo Meier, like hallelujah. But other than that, I don't think there's anyone else that I'm all that interested in. Anyone that you have on your radar from this game?
Yeah, one guy that I think is in a great spot here is Vlasic. I was making a joke about him last game, but he played 27 minutes last game. Granted, a lot of that was penalty kill time, but in terms of a guy who's only 3.5, I was just looking. He has at least one block shot in every single game this season, and he has a shot or two in all but one game this season at 3.5. He was playing with Braun, and he was seeing power play 2 time. I think that's a great player. He's seeing a ton of minutes. He taking all that PK time too gives him a huge opportunity to block shots and get you that half point there. I think with him almost guaranteeing you at least one shot, one block every game, like I don't know, I just think that that's great. And him going up against Toronto, I think he's going to be in a great spot. He's the 4th overall in terms of most likely to meet their value on the slate. So, yeah, I really like Vlasic at 3.5.
Yeah, I think that's a very strong play. And then if you're looking to stack with Vlasic, Tomas Hertl is playing he's been leading the team in minutes on a pretty regular basis. He's sadly not on the power play one, as I think I've mentioned at least a few times here that I've hoped that he would kind of get that promotion to fill the Patrick Marleau role. That hasn't happened, but he's still playing 20 minutes. He kills penalties with Vlasic. He's on the power play two with Vlasic, and he plays at 5-on-5 with Logan Couture. So certainly a spot to keep an eye on, as Hertl is down at 4,700. So he's a strong play. I mentioned Patrick Marleau. Interestingly, let's see, JVR was out for last game. I'm not sure his status here, but I mean, if you're looking for the narrative of all narratives, Patrick Marleau himself said that he's not sure if he'll be able to stop himself from crying when he returns to San Jose for, I think he had an 18-year career there before he headed off to Toronto. But he's still playing 17 minutes on this Leafs team. He played with Mitch Marner and Tyler Bozak last game. So if JVR comes back, like I suspect he will, I think he'll move back with Brown and Kadri on that line. Either way, I certainly think he is well worth a play, even if not for the emotional narrative, but just for the fact that he is at a decent price point on a team in a game with a 6 over under. So I guess that's kind of one note.
Looks like JVR may be back on Monday.
Okay.
I just see this note here saying that he was a game time decision for Saturday's game, and that they decided at the last minute that he wasn't going to go. So I'm assuming he'll probably be ready for Monday, although it doesn't say that. So keep an eye on that.
Right. And so if JVR is out again, I think the most direct beneficiary, while he played only 4th line minutes for the Leafs on Saturday. Josh Lavo came up and played on the Matthews power play unit. I like JVR is not going to take Lavo's spot in particular, but I think he's going to bump probably Kadri up to the Matthews unit while JVR plays with Bozak and Marner on that power play. So that would mean Lavo loses power play time. But Lavo played 15 minutes despite only fourth line 5-on-5 time and got some shifts with Matthews as well. So he's just a player that like the analytics community loves. Toronto can't believe that they play Matt Martin over him regularly, and he's only 3.5 or 3.2. So if JVR is out, or if Lavo is just like confirmed in and on a power play unit, I'm not sure how likely it is we get that news, but if he is, he's certainly worth a look here. So anything else, Doug, or should we guarantee some gold?
No, I think I'm good.
Okay. Yeah, let's see. Take a moment to collect my thoughts on this slate. Are you going to take Tavares or should I?
You can take him.
Okay, I was
But
debating going off the reservation. I was debating going off the reservation for a Ryan Pulock double dose, or I guess a double dip in terms of he just scored last game. But I've already been burned once by the bold call strategy, so try and keep this a bit more in the ballpark. I'll take Tavares as my high-priced guy, and let me take a look at the 4 to 5K range just to make sure I don't go obvious. You have anyone?
I think I will take Dadonov. And how much
good.
does that leave me with?
Like 5.7 to 6 something.
Yeah.
Anyone in that range.
Oh, the problem, I don't want to stack my two guys together. And Cam Atkinson's hurt. Oh no.
Yo, Patches.
I don't know. I'm not a believer. I just because I haven't watched. I guess I can get on board with that just because the shots were there. I will take. Where did he go?
All right, let me.
Yeah,
now that I've confirmed Lehkonen was on the power play one last game as well, so let me go with Tavares and Arturi Lehkonen at a combined 11.3. So those are my two guaranteed goals.
I'll take Anders Lee and Dadonov, so that puts me only at 10.5, but that's fine.
Oh, all right. Some
Actually, let me bump up. Let me bump up to Huberdeau and take Lee still.
Oh, not okay. All right, I can dig that. So Huberdeau and Lee for Doug, and I will take Tavares and Lehkonen. So, anything else to say to the listeners before we head into our Mondays?
No, I don't think so.
All right, perfect. So, keep jamming in Ryan Pulock until I say otherwise. And then keep an eye on the Shane Gostisbehere news because that's really the two big things on the slate, in my opinion. So, from Doug, from DJ, who should bring his mic home the next time he goes home. But, anyways, and from myself, and we will see you.